name is Christopher, and I do run Contra Atheist. And this is my first attempt to try to do anything as far as YouTube is concerned. And I guess what it really comes down to is I've been looking for anything, any evidence of people that are actually interested in Plato and thus Socrates' myth of metals and how that might relate to uh, the construction of the just and ideal city. Because I think there is an argument that can be made which basically demonstrates that the just city is, in principle, impossible. Let me put it like this. The myth of metals, this is proposition 1, premise 1. The myth of metals demonstrates that the just city, or the ideal city, is founded on the idea that mixing of the metals would make it impossible. So in other words, premise 1, the myth of metals is the foundation of the just city. If you don't know what the myth of metals is, that's okay. I'm going to tell you. The myth of metals is a story, a lie, a falsehood, which Socrates basically says is needed in order to, and he admits that it is a falsehood, and that it's needed in order to make sure that the mixing of metals does not happen, because justice, according to Socrates, in the ideal city, is everybody doing their part, everybody doing their thing, everybody doing what is their role, and not doing anything else. Mixing of the metals equates to doing something outside of what your role is in that particular society. And the ideal society, according to Socrates, and thus Plato, is basically whatever it is that you're born into, whatever it is that you do best. There are 3 divisions and 3 levels. You have the bronze people, who are the money makers, the working class, and they are the largest group. You have the silver, and they are the guardians, the soldier class, those who carry out the commands of the ruling class, and you have the ruling class, which is gold, the gold class, and they are the guardians, the true guardians, the philosopher kings. Socrates makes it very clear, until the rulers become philosophers, or philosophers become rulers slash kings, then it is impossible for the city to ever come about, or to ever exist. And so my argument is going to demonstrate that this city, according to Socrates, is impossible even according to his own theoretical basis. And here's the reason why. We have established premise 1, that the myth of metals is necessary in order to make sure that that there is no mixing of classes, because that's the foundation of the just city. It's the non-mixing of classes, the what you might call the specialization of skills or labor. Okay, so premise 2 would simply be, according to Socrates, that the myth of metals is a falsehood. He very plainly states that. He even states he doesn't think that it actually ever does happen, or that it ever could happen in Greece at the time of when he was talking about this. And so it is clearly a falsehood. There's lots of different places we could look to describe it as a falsehood. Even if it's a falsehood in the tripartite soul, as being a falsehood in the highest part, still in whatever way, it's a falsehood, and he clearly states that. So premise 2 is it's a falsehood. So conclusion One is simply that the just city is founded upon a falsehood. Okay, I think that that's a sound argument, but it still doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove that that the just city is impossible, which is what I'm going to try to do here for you tonight. Um, but it does simply suggest something very weird. I mean, it shows that there's something strange going on about the just city. I mean, if the just city is founded on a falsehood, you know, I would question whether Socrates would accept that, or how it would really differ from what Glaucon is trying to get at with the Ring of Gyres in the book of the first book and the second book. Um, the point is that okay, we have something strange going on here. So premise 3 is a very interesting premise. Basically states that the philosopher king alone is able to rule the city. All right, I think that's something that's pretty clearly stated throughout the book, The Republic. Um, like I said before, Socrates makes it very clear. He says, until philosophers become kings, or until kings become philosophers, then the city can never actually exist. And we have plenty of examples throughout books 7, 8, and 9 where he goes into great detail at how, you know, the philosopher king is the one and only sort of individual who can actually rule the city. Okay, so that's premise 3. The philosopher king alone can rule the city. Next premise, premise 4. Philosopher king alone can rule the city because of a very important reason. Because he or she alone hates falsehood. Alright? So there we have it. Premise 3. Only the philosopher king can rule the city. Premise 4. The reason why the philosopher king is the only one that can rule the city is because only that individual, he or she, truly hates falsehood. Alright, so conclusion number 2 is he or she who rules the city hates that upon which the city is founded. So the philosopher king, who is the only one who can truly rule the city, and they can only rule the city because they hate falsehood. In other words, they can only truly rule the city because they truly hate that upon which the city is founded. This is pretty strange. Getting kind of queer. Not in a gay way, but in a strange way. Alright, so we have something going on here, and I think there's another premise lurking around the corner. Okay, very interestingly, according to the Republic, Plato lets us know that, okay, the way he describes truth is it's not simply something that is fact outside of the world. It's not simply, you know, an external, like, reality. To him, truth is something that, that humans do. Truth for Plato is full disclosure. It's transparency. It's bringing to light that which has been hidden, which suggests a political nature to it. And so I think that we would have to understand truth for Plato as being something that, like I said, humans do. With that said, we must understand that in comparison to falsehood, it's sort of that question. It's like, if you don't tell the whole truth, are you lying? Okay, so we're at premise 4. Education. It's very simple, according to the Republic. Anything which could be considered a falsehood, or, like I said, not telling the full truth, according to Plato, anything along those lines would be falsehood. So education of the philosopher king would entail hating falsehood and not allowing falsehood to be taken to be something that would be allowed into the city. The Republic describes falsehood as being something, as far as education is concerned, of the philosopher, king, or of the guardian, as something that is to be repelled, something to be rejected, something that cannot be allowed. So therefore, if we were to say that premise 4, I think that's what we're on, states falsehood is to be rejected, then we must also conclude from that that the myth of metals is to be rejected. Yet, if we were to conclude that the myth of metals is to be rejected, which according to our previous conclusion that the myth of metals is a falsehood, yes, and that the myth of metals is the foundation of the just city. Without it, the just city falls, as it's described in book 8, for an example, where the myth of metals is the first thing that goes, and that's the inevitable downhill slide into all sorts of debauchery and whatnot. If we were to conclude that the myth of metals is a falsehood, and that the myth of metals, therefore, is excluded, then the just city is impossible.